Good evening, and welcome to another quiet, meandering journey into the quieter, forgotten corners of history. As you settle in, perhaps the weight of your day still clings to your thoughts. The hum of modern life, the screens, the noise, the endless demands of a world that rarely stops moving. But here, in this gentle corner of the night, we leave all that behind. Tonight, I invite you to travel with me to a time both beautiful and unforgiving. A world of silken kimonos and rusted swords, delicate tea ceremonies, and brutal punishments. We're venturing deep into the rigid, ritual-laden society of Edo-era Japan, a place where beauty was everywhere, yet personal freedom was a rare and precious thing. While modern images of Japan often conjure serene cherry blossoms and graceful poetry, the reality for most people living in this era was a life of relentless, structure-exhausting labor and constant fear of transgressing rules, so numerous they were almost impossible to count. And so, as you relax, eyes growing heavy perhaps, imagine yourself there, under the soft glow of a paper lantern, the air thick with the scent of dami matting and distant burning wood. Listen to the steady clack of geta sandals on worn cobblestones, the occasional distant cry of a night bird. Let's begin. Imagine, if you will, opening your eyes not to your familiar home, but to a narrow street in Edo, the city we now know as Tokyo. It's the mid-18th century, and the world around you hums with a quiet kind of urgency. The streets are uneven, lined with small wooden buildings huddled together as though for warmth. Above, signs of painted wood and hanging lanterns announce shops and tea houses. And around you, 1,000 unspoken rules dictate your every move. You wake not when you choose, but when the town crier, a man carrying a wooden clapper, walks the streets at dawn, marking the start of the day. Sleepy merchants, laborers, and artisans shuffle into the streets, each bound to their strictly assigned place in society's hierarchy. In Edo, Japan, it wasn't just what you did, but what you were born as that determined your fate. The Shi-no-Kao-sho system placed samurai at the top, followed by peasants, artisans, and merchants. At the very bottom, those considered outside the official social order: beggars, outcasts, entertainers, and laborers in unclean professions. As an ordinary townsman, perhaps a carpenter or a seller of rice cakes, your days are filled with relentless toil. There is no notion of social mobility. The clothing you wear is dictated by your class. Cheap, muted cotton for you. No silks, no bright colors. The government strictly enforced sumptuary laws, which governed not just what you wore, but what you ate, where you lived, and even the style of your house. Imagine the texture of the rough, unlined cotton against your skin, made all the more uncomfortable by the humid summer air, thick with the scent of mud, ash, and cooking fish. Each morning, you might sweep the street outside your home, a task legally required to maintain communal order and cleanliness. Failing to follow even minor rules could result in swift public punishment. A man caught wearing a silk sash beyond his station might be stripped of it in the street, humiliated before his neighbors. Repeat offenses brought harsher outcomes: flogging, or in some cases, exile. The labor itself is unending. For farmers in the countryside, the rhythm of their lives was tied to rice, not just food, but currency, taxes, and tribute. Imagine bending at the waist, hour upon hour, planting seedlings in knee-deep water under a sunless, gray sky. Your back a dull, aching line of pain. Insects buzz persistently. The smell of damp earth is constant, the slick mud cool between your toes. And when harvest time came, it wasn't a moment of relief. Most of your crop would be claimed by your daimyo, the local lord, or by the government in taxation. Whatever you managed to hide or keep might feed your family, barely, through the winter. For those in the city, things were little better. Artisans worked by dim candlelight, the flicker of flames reflected in the polished grain of wood or the sheen of metal. Imagine the repetitive scrape of blades, the scent of sawdust mingling with smoke, the oppressive warmth of enclosed workshops. Food was plain, most meals consisting of rice, miso soup, and pickled vegetables. Meat was rare and, for much of the period, officially discouraged due to Buddhist influence. Evenings might seem quieter, but they too carried unspoken dangers. A wrong word, an accidental insult to a passing samurai, could result in immediate death. The law granted samurai the right to strike down commoners for disrespect, real or perceived, a practice known as kirisut gomen. And then there were the punishments. Justice in Edo, Japan was a public spectacle, meant as much to deter as to correct. Picture a dusty square where crowds gather, the scent of hot dust and sweat lingering in the air. Offenders were displayed, flogged, or, in severe cases, beheaded. Even minor infractions could result in exile to remote islands, where survival was uncertain. Perhaps the only respite in this life was the small rituals. The simple beauty of a tea ceremony, the gentle rustle of wind through a bamboo screen, and the delicate notes of a shamisen drifting from the tea house. These moments of quiet beauty contrasted sharply with the rigid, unyielding world outside. As night fell, the streets of Edo dimmed. Oil lamps flickered behind paper walls, and the city settled into its prescribed rhythms. You would sleep on a thin straw mat, the air cool and still, your limbs heavy with exhaustion. The faint sound of a night watchman's bell marked the slow passage of hours, and so it would begin again, day after day. The same routines, the same fears, the same unchanging place in the grand lattice of society. A life of enduring repetition, where stepping beyond one's prescribed role was unthinkable, where even beauty was bound in awe and custom. And as you imagine this world, one both exquisite and oppressive, you may find your mind growing quieter, your thoughts heavier, like the ink of a calligrapher's brush settling into rice paper. Soon, we'll turn from the lives of ordinary townsfolk to a tale of loyalty and revenge, where the intricate rules of Edo society led to one of its most famous tragedies. But for now, let the rhythms of this world settle in your mind. As the clack of sandals fades into the night, and the small houses of Edo dim behind their rice paper walls, let us now turn our attention to a tale well known in Japanese lore. A story so enduring that it has been retold in countless plays, scrolls, and later, films. But beyond the legend lies a story far more bureaucratic, suffocating, and quietly brutal, a testament to how even the highest echelons of Edo society lived under the crushing weight of ritual, law, and expectation. This is the tale of the 47 Ronin. Imagine yourself now, not as a humble townsman or farmer, but a samurai retainer, a servant bound not merely by duty, but by a centuries-old code, Bushido, the way of the warrior. A life of endless formality, where every word, every bow, and every glance could carry deadly consequence. It begins in the early years of the 18th century, in the opulent, incense-heavy halls of Edo Castle. The shogunate maintained a strict hierarchy, with regional lords, known as daimyo, summoned to the capital regularly to pay their respects and demonstrate loyalty. Among them was Lord Asano Naganori, a relatively minor daimyo from the distant Akko domain. He was an inexperienced courtier, unaccustomed to the labyrinthine rituals of the shogun's court. Imagine the pressure. Walking through corridors lined with guards, the faint scent of lacquered wood and perfumed robes clinging to the air, aware that any misstep, any missed protocol could bring ruin. To assist him in navigating these delicate formalities was a senior official named Kira Yoshinaka, a shogunate court official known for his arrogance and appetite for bribes. It is said that Kira, displeased by Asano's modest gifts and perceived lack of deference, continually insulted and belittled the young lord. The court was a nest of veiled slights and whispered malice. On a spring day in 1701, Asano's patience snapped. Inside Edo Castle, armed only with a short dagger, for weapons were otherwise forbidden in these sacred spaces, he attacked Kira, wounding him but failing to kill. The offense was grave, not because of the attack itself, but because it occurred within the sanctified grounds of the shogun's residence. Imagine the frozen stillness of that moment. A sharp intake of breath from courtiers. The whispered horror. The blood darkening the polished floor. Asano was arrested immediately. The punishment swift and absolute. He was ordered to commit seppuku, ritual suicide, that very evening. In his residence, surrounded by stone-faced retainers, Asano would have composed a death poem, knelt before a small tray of incense, and with a steady hand, opened his belly, a final act of loyalty to the shogunate's unyielding law. And what of his men? 47 samurai, now masterless ronin, were left adrift, bound by duty to avenge their lord, yet forbidden by the shogunate's decree. Theirs was a life in limbo, where Bushido demanded revenge, and the government demanded obedience. For nearly 2 years, the ronin scattered, disguising their intentions. Some took on menial labor, others pretended to fall into dissipation and poverty. All the while, they plotted. Imagine their nights, the quiet murmuring of plans by guttering candlelight, the weight of both honor and death hanging above them like the steady drip of rain from a temple roof. Finally, on a cold, snow-laden night in December 1702, they struck. At Kira's estate in Edo, the 47 ronin reached the gates, battling guards in the biting wind. Yet even in violence, there was formality. They sought Kira out with care, calling out his name before striking, ensuring witnesses to each act. When at last they found him, cowering in a shed, they offered him the same chance they had denied their own lord, to die with honor by his own hand. Kira refused, and so he was executed. The ronin, having completed their duty, then marched through the streets to Asano's grave, Kira's head wrapped in white cloth. There, they washed it in a nearby well and laid it at their master's tomb. What followed was inevitable. The government, caught between law and the powerful symbolism of loyalty, deliberated for weeks. In the end, the ronin were sentenced to death, but by the honorable method of seppuku. And so, in small groups, each man met his end, calm and composed, leaving behind poems and letters. Their graves, even today, rest at Sengakuji Temple in Tokyo, a place where the scent of incense still clings to the stone, and the rustle of leaves recalls the quiet tread of those who chose duty over life. This is the truth of the 47 ronin, a tale not of gallant rebellion, but of ritualized, suffocating obligation. A world where even acts of vengeance were weighed against the bureaucratic machinery of state, and death was as much a matter of paperwork as it was of steel. As the final echoes of their story settle, let your mind drift further now, beyond the palaces and streets of Edo, to a quieter, more secretive place, a hidden world of forbidden faith and desperate survival. Next, we will uncover the story of the hidden Christians of Nagasaki, those who clung to outlawed beliefs in the shadow of the shogunate. For now, breathe in the memory of those snow-silent streets, the glint of steel and moonlight, and let it fade. Now, with the distant memory of blood-soaked snow behind us, let us journey to a quieter, more secretive corner of Edo, Japan, a world not of samurai or city magistrates, but of simple fishermen, farmers, and artisans. A hidden world of forbidden prayers, secret symbols, and faith carried like an ember in the palm of the hand. We travel now to the coastal hills of Nagasaki, where, during the Yakugawa shogunate, a strange and perilous chapter of history quietly unfolded. Christianity first arrived in Japan in the mid-16th century, carried by Portuguese traders and Jesuit missionaries, the most famous of whom was Francis Xavier. To the peasantry, and some lords alike, this new faith held a curious and alien promise, an alternative to the endless cycle of war, drought, and deference. It offered salvation and a life beyond suffering. At first, Christianity flourished. Small churches rose beside the fishing villages, and crosses adorned the homes of converts. But as the shogunate consolidated power, it saw the new religion as a dangerous foreign influence, one that threatened the delicate, ordered hierarchy of Japan. Imagine yourself now in the soft, gray pre-dawn of a coastal hamlet. The air is thick with salt and mist, the wooden homes huddled against the wind like ancient crabs along the shore. You are one of the Kakure Kirishiten, the hidden Christians. To own a crucifix, a prayer book, or to even speak the name of the Christian God was punishable by death. Yet faith persisted. The villagers adapted. Christian images were subtly merged with Buddhist and Shinto iconography. Statues of Kannon, the goddess of mercy, served in place of the Virgin Mary. Prayers were recited in a garbled mixture of Portuguese, Latin, and Japanese, words whose meanings faded, but whose rhythms endured. At the heart of this clandestine faith were rituals performed in secret. Tiny gatherings at night, deep within homes, behind shuttered windows and beneath floorboards. Lanterns dimmed, voices hushed. The scent of fish and smoke lingered in the air, mingling with the metallic tang of seawater. To identify Christians, the authorities devised a chilling practice known as the fumi. Each year, suspected believers were ordered to step upon images of Christ or the Virgin, typically cast in bronze or painted on wood. Imagine the moment, the gathering crowd, the officials' cold gaze, the murmuring of villagers. The image laid upon the ground, worn smooth by countless feet. To step upon it was to renounce your faith and save your life. To refuse meant torture, exile, or execution. It was a brutal test not of belief, but of terror and survival. Many complied, their hearts aching as they pressed their feet upon the sacred image. Others hesitated, their defiance ending in imprisonment or death. Some legends speak of entire families choosing to drown together rather than recant. For over 2 centuries, the hidden Christians sustained their beliefs in secret. Oral traditions passed through generations like fragile heirlooms. Rituals morphed, prayers decayed into fragments, but the core, a belief in salvation and mercy, remained intact. In the late 19th century, with the collapse of the Tokugawa shogunate and the reopening of Japan to the world, Christianity was legalized. When missionaries returned to Nagasaki, they were astounded to find pockets of believers still practicing, their faith battered but unbroken. Today, scattered relics of this hidden world endure. Tombs marked with covert Christian symbols, villages whose shrines once concealed forbidden icons, and descendants who carry the stories in whispered memory. As you imagine these quiet, wind-stirred coastal hills, think of those who lived entire lives beneath the weight of fear. Their faith no longer a loud declaration, but a soft, secret pulse, something known only to them, the sea and the silent gods. Let that thought linger a while, as mist gathers on the hills of Nagasaki and the tide softly laps the shore. And now, from the hidden alleys and secret prayers of peasants and fishermen, we turn to another world entirely, to the lives of those at the very pinnacle of Edo society. The samurai elite, prepare to glimpse a life equally bound by duty, formality, and surprising tedium, as we step within the walls of a samurai estate. As dawn breaks over the tiled rooftops of Edo, the streets begin to stir with the quiet labor of merchants and peasants. Yet within the high walls of the samurai estates, a different rhythm governs the day, one of rigid ceremony, punctuated by stillness, duty, and a curious kind of cloistered tedium. You might imagine the life of a samurai as one filled with battle, training, and honor-bound quests. But in the long, uneasy peace of the Edo period, warfare was largely absent. The sword remained sharp, but it was rarely drawn in earnest. Instead, samurai became bureaucrats, administrators, and the enforcers of law and tradition. Picture yourself now as a mid-ranking samurai, awakening in your estate. The sun's first light filters through paper screens, casting pale patterns on tatami mats. The room smells faintly of cedar and ink. Outside, the soft sweep of a servant's broom marks the beginning of another meticulously ordered day. Your duties are strict, though rarely exciting. Perhaps you are responsible for managing tax records, supervising town guards, or overseeing the shogunate's edicts within your domain. The work is painstaking, every scroll and ledger treated with reverence. The hours slip by in a haze of calligraphy, formal meetings, and carefully measured conversation. Meals are modest, even for those of rank. Breakfast might consist of rice, pickled vegetables, and miso soup. Later, more rice, perhaps grilled fish or a small helping of tofu, seasoned delicately with soy and citrus. The flavors are subtle, meant to nourish rather than delight. The estate itself is a world apart. Within its walls lie manicured gardens, koi ponds reflecting the sky like still mirrors, and narrow paths of raked gravel. Yet even here, leisure is bound by formality. Tea ceremonies, poetry readings, and the tending of bonsai are all performed according to rigid customs. Each movement practiced, each word measured. Training in martial skills continues, but without the urgent purpose of war. Swordsmanship becomes a discipline of the mind as much as the body. Hours spent in silent kata, repetitive forms practiced against invisible foes. The click of wooden swords in the courtyard, the scuff of sandals on packed earth. For women of the estate, life is even more confined. Daughters of samurai families are instructed in etiquette, calligraphy, and music. Marriages are arranged to cement alliances or social standing. Some serve as intermediaries in political affairs, though always from behind screens or through carefully worded letters. The samurai class, though privileged, was not immune to hardship. Financial strain was common, as laws forbade them from engaging in trade or manual labor. Many estates quietly fell into debt, their lords maintaining appearances even as rice stores dwindled and silk robes were patched in secret. Imagine the evening, the estate settling into stillness. The glow of lanterns reflecting on garden ponds, the hum of crickets beneath eaves. Servants move silently through corridors, their presence almost ghostly. Within the main hall, the head of the household sits in contemplation, the weight of legacy and expectation pressing upon him as heavily as any suit of armor. The walls, though thick, cannot keep out the passage of time. As Edo-era Japan approached its twilight, the world outside these estates would change irrevocably. Commodore Perry's black ships, the Meiji Restoration, and the collapse of the shogunate would sweep away centuries of tradition. The samurai would lose their swords, their stipends, and eventually their very place in society. But here, in this fleeting, ordered world, time holds still for a while longer. Let yourself linger in that calm. The soft tread of sandals on tatami, the cool weight of a katana resting by your side, the quiet repetition of duties stretching endlessly into tomorrow. And now, as our journey through Edo, Japan draws to a close, let us gently return to the present, leaving behind the incense-scented streets and silent gardens of a world both beautiful and unforgiving. As you rest now, consider the rhythms of those lives long past. The samurai bound by duty, the peasants beneath their straw hats, the hidden Christians whispering prayers to the sea, and the ronin who chose death for honor's sake. History remembers them in fragments, a poem here, a crumbling shrine there. Yet their struggles, their quiet routines, and their moments of peace were no less real than our own. The world you inhabit tonight is gentler. No fumi-e awaits you at dawn. No decree will dictate your meals or the cut of your sleeves. The hum of electric light replaces the flicker of oil lamps, and your bed, no matter how humble, would seem a paradise to those who slept on straw and earth. Allow these echoes of the past to fade now, their stories settling like dust upon ancient tatami floors. Let your breath slow, your thoughts drift, and sleep gently carry you beyond the walls of Edo, beyond history itself. Good night.
Welcome, dear listener. As you settle in for the night, perhaps resting your head upon your pillow or letting your eyes grow heavy, I invite you to journey with me into a world both distant and strangely familiar. The intricate, ordered, and quietly oppressive society of Edo-era Japan. Spanning over 2 centuries, the Edo period was a time of remarkable peace, rigid social structure, and exquisite cultural refinement. On the surface, it was a world of blossoming cherry trees, precise tea ceremonies, and elegant woodblock prints. But beneath this beauty lay lives marked by relentless duty, crushing poverty, and a constant tension between control and rebellion. Tonight, we'll wander through this world together, from the backbreaking labor of farmers and merchants, to the hidden lives of courtesans and geisha, the stern discipline of the samurai, elite, and the whispered legends that survived in the shadows. Let the quiet rhythm of the past ease you toward rest, as we uncover the hidden burdens of a society both beautiful and, in many ways, surprisingly miserable. Now, close your eyes if you wish, let your breath grow steady, and imagine yourself walking the mist-laden streets of Old Edo, where each footstep carries you deeper into history. Imagine yourself waking slowly in a modest, dimly lit room. The soft glow of an oil lamp flickers gently, casting long shadows across the delicate rice paper walls. The faint scent of tatami mats, warmed by the morning sun, mingles with the subtle aroma of drying persimmons hanging outside. Your hands begin their day even before your mind fully wakes, gathering water from a cold wooden bucket, the surface smooth and cool beneath your fingers. This is the rhythm of a woman's life in Edo, Japan. A world ruled by careful order, strict rules, and a relentless flow of duties, where every motion has its place, and silence is often the most valued language. Your day begins before the rooster's call, with the sweep of a bamboo broom, each stroke deliberate and practiced, sending a whisper of dust across the earthen floor. There is no room for hesitation. The household depends on your tireless labor. You wash the family's clothes in the nearby river, the water crisp and sharp against your skin, your breath visible in the chill of early morning. The world you live in is governed by a strict hierarchy, where your worth is often measured by obedience and quiet, and education for women is limited, focused mostly on mastering the arts of domesticity, sewing fine silks, perfecting the tea ceremony, or learning the graceful strokes of calligraphy, all practiced behind closed doors. Your appearance is regulated by sumptuary laws, certain colors and fabrics reserved only for those of higher rank, while your own clothing must remain simple, modest, a reflection of your family's status. Even the weight of your kimono and the way you carry yourself are judged, a constant reminder of the unspoken expectations woven into every fiber of your life. Marriage is not a choice, but a contract arranged by families, a union to strengthen alliances or preserve honor. Love is a whisper behind paper screens, a secret kept beneath the surface of duty. You are to serve your father, then your husband, and later your eldest son, always placing their needs above your own. Days are long and unyielding, filled with endless chores, preparing meals over a low hearth, kneading rice into delicate shapes, folding paper lanterns for festivals you seldom attend. The sounds of your world are the crackle of the fire, the rustle of kimono silk, and the soft murmur of your own breathing, steady and calm. Yet, beneath the surface of obedience, there is a quiet strength. The concept of gamen, to endure with patience and dignity, shapes your spirit. Your resilience is like the gentle flow of a river, persistent and unassuming. As the sun sets and the house settles into silence, you find moments of solitude by the sliding doors. Watching the moonlight pool over the garden, Crickets sing their evening song, and the cool air carries the scent of pine and earth. It is in these fragile moments, brief and still, that your world feels less heavy. But imagine trying to live this life, day after day, year after year, bound by invisible chains of expectation and ritual. Imagine the quiet exhaustion of endless service and the absence of personal freedom, all wrapped in the delicate beauty of Edo-era society. This is the world where a woman's life was often one of silent hardship, where survival meant conforming to a complex web of customs that left little room for joy or rebellion. Imagine now stepping back in time to a misty plain, where legends whisper through the bamboo groves and ancient stones stand sentinel beneath a pale sky. Here lived Takayasha, the daughter of a powerful warlord named Taira no Masako, whose rebellion against the central government shook the foundations of Edo-era Japan. Takayasha's story is not one of courtly elegance or gentle grace, but of fierce determination and quiet defiance in a world ruled by men and warriors. When her father's uprising was crushed and his land seized, Takayasha fled to a remote cottage, surrounded by dark forests and swirling fog. She is said to have turned to the arcane arts, practicing sorcery in secret to avenge her family's downfall. The most famous tale tells of her summoning a giant skeletal specter known as Gashada Korawan, enormous creature made of countless bones, to frighten and repel her enemies. This haunting image was immortalized centuries later in woodblock prints by the artist Kuni, where Takayasha's fierce spirit is captured her eyes steady and unyielding beneath the flickering light of a lantern. Though the lines between history and myth blur in her story, Takayasha symbolizes a rare form of female strength in a society that often demanded silence and submission. She embodies the idea that even in a repressive era, some women found ways to resist, to protect their families, and to leave a mark on the world. The legend of Takayasha also speaks to the deeper cultural role of women warriors on Abukasha, who trained in martial arts and sometimes led troops in battle. Though rare, their existence reminds us that Edo Japan's rigid social orders had subtle cracks where individual courage could shine. Imagine the hush of twilight in a bamboo forest, the cool mist curling around your ankles as you listen to the rustling leaves and the distant call of a nightbird. The world feels both mysterious and alive, filled with secrets passed down in whispers. Takayasha's story, woven from history and legend, invites you to reflect on the complexity beneath the surface of Edo Japan where, even in hardship, stories of bravery and magic endured. Imagine yourself walking slowly through the narrow, lantern-lit streets of Edo's pleasure quarters as evening settles softly over the city. The air is thick with the delicate scents of incense and cherry blossoms, mingling with the faint aroma of green tea served in quiet tea. Here, in this hidden world, lived the courtesans and geisha women who occupied a unique place in Edo society, balancing artistry, social skill, and rigid expectations. Their lives were a complex dance between freedom and constraint. On the surface, they were celebrated for their beauty, grace, and talent, masters of music, poetry, and conversation. But behind the silk screens and painted faces lay a daily routine bound by strict rules and an unyielding hierarchy. Courtesans, known as oiran, were ranked according to skill and status, and their days were filled with meticulous preparation. Imagine the hours spent dressing in multiple layers of heavy silk kimono, each carefully folded and tied with wide obis, the fabric cool yet cumbersome against their skin. The weight of their attire was a constant reminder of the role. They played a symbol of wealth and allure, but also of control. Their mornings began early with rigorous training in classical dance, shamisen music, and calligraphy, requiring steady concentration and endless repetition. Every movement was practiced to perfection, designed to enchant patrons and uphold the reputation of the pleasure quarters. The courtesans' artistry was their currency, yet their personal freedoms were limited contracts. bound them to their houses, and their futures were often shaped by arrangements made long before they understood their own desires. Geisha, though often confused with courtesans, held a distinct social role. Trained from a young age in the traditional arts, their purpose was to entertain through refined conversation, music, and dance, serving as companions rather than romantic partners. The geisha world was governed by intricate etiquette, where every bow, every word was carefully measured to maintain grace and poise. In these quarters, you would witness a delicate, balanced woman navigating the pressures of societal expectation with quiet resilience. The sound of the shamisen strings would float through paper walls, punctuated by soft laughter and whispered conversations. Yet beneath this surface of elegance lay the constant reality of economic hardship and social vulnerability. Many courtesans and geisha lived lives of uncertainty, dependent on the whims of patrons and the fortunes of their houses. Illness could end a career abruptly, and the shadow of poverty loomed large once their youthful beauty faded. Mirrors as these women prepared for another evening, faces painted white with rice powder, lips brushed with vermilion eyes outlined in delicate strokes of black. Their expressions were serene, practiced, yet behind them hid countless hours of toil and sacrifice. This hidden world reveals a different facet of Edo Japan's social tapestry, one where beauty and art intertwined with hardship and constraint, creating a delicate but demanding existence. Imagine now stepping beyond the bustling streets and quiet traveling to the expansive grounds of a samurai estate during Edo Japan. The gardens are meticulously maintained, raked gravel, creating precise patterns that invite contemplation. The wooden buildings stand solid and austere, their sliding doors revealing rooms sparsely furnished but arranged with exacting order. Life here, for the samurai class, might seem enviable from the outside. Privileges of rank, access to refined culture, and the protection of the shogunate's power. Yet beneath this veneer of prestige lies a world bound by discipline, ritual, and an unyielding code. Your day begins before dawn. The clatter of wooden geta sandals on polished floors echoes through quiet corridors. Training in martial arts is a daily obligation, not just for physical strength, but to uphold honor and readiness. Imagine the repetitive thud of practiced swords striking targets, the measured breaths in meditation, the steady focus required to master each technique. Meals are simple but formal, consumed in silence or whispered tones. The taste of steamed rice, miso soup, and pickled vegetables fills the room. Flavors modest but carefully prepared to nourish without excess. Your diet reflects the samurai's dedication to restraint, avoiding indulgence to maintain a clear mind and disciplined body. Yet much of the day is spent in bureaucratic duties. Paperwork, record keeping, and correspondence with other estates consume hours. The samurai's role as administrators and managers often meant sitting for long periods, immersed in the minutiae of governance rather than the romance of swordplay. Social interactions are governed by strict etiquette. Every bow, every exchange measured for rank and respect. Deviations could bring disgrace, a shadow that could linger for generations. The pressure to maintain family honor is constant, a quiet weight felt beneath the rigid posture and formal speech. Outside the estate walls, farmers and merchants labor under harsh conditions to support this privileged class, their struggles mostly hidden. The samurai rarely engage directly with these realities, creating a disconnect that sometimes bred complacency or frustration. Evenings bring their own routines. Tea ceremonies conducted with careful precision. Poetry recited in dimly lit rooms. The flicker of paper lanterns casting dancing shadows. These cultural pursuits offer moments of beauty and reflection. yet also underscore the cloistered and often monotonous nature of samurai life. Imagine the stillness of a moonlit night as you gaze across the estate gardens, the cool air carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. Beneath this calm surface lies a world of quiet burdens, expectations that bind, duties that never end, and a constant striving to embody ideals that often feel out of reach. This glimpse into samurai life reveals that privilege in Edo, Japan, was often accompanied by its own forms of constraint and sacrifice. The very order that sustained society also demanded a lifetime of discipline and restraint, shaping the rhythm of days in subtle but profound ways. And so, dear listener, our quiet passage through the world of Edo, Japan draws to a close. You have seen what life was like for those bound by duty, silenced by social ranks, and burdened by the expectations of a system designed to hold each person firmly in their place. From the tireless farmers tending fields in summer heat to the geisha perfecting their arts behind paper walls, to the samurai confined by unbending codes and the legends of rebellious spirits lurking in the shadows. Theirs was a world of unrelenting order and fragile beauty. It was a time when beauty was valued, but personal freedom often was not. When small moments of art, poetry, and companionship became precious refuges from the slow, grinding weight of obligation. As you rest now, perhaps you'll carry with you the gentle hush of a bamboo grove at dusk, or the quiet echo of a shamisen string in a distant tea house. Let these sounds and images become soft, fading shapes in the background of your dreams. The past may be distant, but its rhythms still linger. In old stories, in quiet places, and in the steady pace of lives lived long ago. Thank you for walking this path with me tonight. May sleep find you gently, as it did those who once lived by the flicker of lantern light. Beneath the silent watch of an ancient moon, good night.